Okay, let's, call the meeting to order. I guess what we're starting out with is Jeff and Tammy Doyle, at Kennel. And you want to explain to us, what's going on? What do you want to do?
I just want to keep my dogs safe, is what I want to do, and I want to keep going as I have been going.
Yep.
And as you saw, the pen has been closed. If people are walking, they're in the house and the blinds are full. We really work hard at keeping them quiet, and they do very well. They're not left out at night, they're not left out during the day unsupervised at all. They're part of our family. It's not something you just get rid of because you follow the rules.
So I'd like to ask Ricky, who is our animal control officer, for those of you who don't know. Have there been any complaints?
We have not, in the year and 2 months that I've been here, we've not received any complaints regarding Mr. Will's dogs. The only thing on file for her at Cumberland County is when she called in to schedule her own kennel inspection. Ms. Doyle has received a kennel license from the town, state municipal license from the town for quite a few years now, and she's always very diligent about calling us, making sure that the inspection happens and that she's in compliance with the state kennel licenses, and she always is. So.
Does anybody on the board have any questions for Rick? Does anybody in the audience have any questions for Rick?
Is this a commercial kennel? Is it?
No, what this is we have 7 beagles and we have 2 labs.
Okay.
The beagles they're older now. The puppies are going to be 11 this year. The mother is 13. Okay, so pretty much they're all headed for retirement.
Yeah.
And the 2 labs, they're my 2 dogs.
Yeah.
You know, but they're pets and hunting dogs.
But this isn't like a commercial.
There's no breeding, there is no boarding, there is no fostering, there is nothing. These are my dogs.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's just you went the extra step to do all this other stuff.
To keep, yeah.
Keep the bees.
Keep them all safe and
Yeah,
make
that's
and
great.
legal and, you know,
Yeah.
so.
If you have more than 5 dogs involved, you
You have
need
to
a
do
kennel
that.
license.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Yep, it is.
Oh God, we're approaching. That's 3. That's fine. Okay. I have 3. That's fine.
Does anybody on the board have any questions about this? Nope. Anybody in the audience have any questions about this?
No, other than she's nuttier than we are, because she has more.
Not me, it's the family, and they've all been warned off, no more.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I am a minute late. Do you mind just repeating the purpose of the kennel? I came in when you said that they were your dogs. I just wanted a little bit more clarification on how many and what the purpose of the kennel is.
Okay.
So if I could just say, I don't know if you heard me say that if you have more than 5 dogs involved,
I did.
you need a kennel license. And so that's what Tammy's come in to do, is to become, not to do anything different than what she's been doing, but to make it legal. Sometimes things fall through the cracks, and once she found out she needed a municipal license, she came to the town and said she wanted to be licensed. So, Tammy, they are your pets?
Yes, and the hunting dogs are pretty much retired. You know, there's one there that my husband won't take out, but that's it. They're all their family.
Does that answer your question?
No. How many dogs are there?
There's 9.
9.
Okay, and how old are they?
They're 6 or 11 this year, and the mother is 13. And I have a 5.5-year-old lab and a, almost 6-year-old lab.
Perfect, that answers my question, thank you.
You're all set? Great, thank you.
I had some concerns, and I'm a neighbor of Tammy and Jeff. It has been great. For the past month and a half, I haven't heard any dogs at all barking. And when I've walked by, they've been perfect. My only concern is from here on. In the past, you know, I can hear them at my house when they do bark. Has it been a problem lately? No, it hasn't. And I don't want to take her dogs away. And I spoke with Tammy personally. I called her up, being a neighbor of mine. And, you know, I was concerned that she was going to get a permit to breed or to board dogs, and she assured me that, no, that wasn't any of their intent. And I was glad to hear that. She also told me that there wouldn't be any increase in the barking that there currently is, and I was happy with that. But I can hear them from my house when they are let outside. And, you know, I came to the meeting because, you know, I wanted to assure that maybe we could put some of this as conditions, like not leaving them outside at night, which I don't believe she does now. I know in the past, and, you know, I don't want to keep going into the past, but I can think that some problems might arise. You know, they've woken me up at 5 in the morning in the past. I sleep with my windows open in the summer. I spend a lot of time outside. But I just want to make sure that that doesn't get any worse than it is now. You know, and she's assured me that, you know, they don't plan to leave them outside. They don't plan to get any more dogs when these pass on. And my concern is too with the town of Baldwin, is that kennel permits do run with the land. And, you know, maybe that could be a condition, you know, if they ever decide to sell, that the permit wouldn't run with the land. I mean, we have one kennel up the road, right beside me.
Right on top of us.
You know, and it's been perfect lately.
But it wasn't for the first 12 years, and the town did nothing for us. So, that's another story.
That's another story.
Right, right. But
But
we just,
maybe
that's
it's
why
a-
we're here. Because we were told then that we didn't go to the first meeting, we better go to this one now. So that's why we're here.
Okay.
And the dog officer also told us then that we don't count just because we're the only ones. And we're not unreasonable because we haven't had a complaint with the other kennel since the last owners left, not one complaint.
11 or 12 years ago.
And
Yeah.
we just don't want this to turn into another nightmare that we had before, another full-blown kennel. And if this runs with the land, Jeff and Tammy, things change, they could sell, they can move, and we don't want it to run with the land. And
Don't these expire every year?
no,
If you address me, that way we don't have people arguing with each other. They can argue with me.
Great.
So I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Do these, permits expire every year? I thought that's what
No.
the Baldwin ordinance said.
Nope, they run with the land, which means if the land sells, the next owner has it. However, if they don't use their conditional use permit for a year, it expires.
Is that 1 year or 2 years?
We have gone down to 1
years.
year, we have
Okay,
2
1 year.
years again, okay.
oh, I don't know, that's what we read somewhere, it was 2 years, but maybe you would know.
The land use ordinance says 2 years, but the conditions that our lawyer and the town and the planning board, the standard conditions which take precedence, because the most restrictive condition takes precedence, is 1 year. So it is 1 year. Did I get that right?
What does that mean though, if like it's 1 year, like,
That means that if somebody comes in, like a lot of these, solar farms come in and they get a CUP for the solar farm, if they don't break ground and start putting in that solar farm for 1 year, then their CUP expires and they have to reapply or get an extension. If somebody has a kennel and they sell the property and the new people that buy it, that kennel, non-existent, non-functioning, non-used for a year, then the CUP expires and they'd have to get it renewed.
That's pretty hard to prove that they didn't use it, so they could just say they did.
Well, one of the ways that could happen would be if Tammy 1 year did not get a state kennel license,
Okay,
we would say she didn't have a kennel.
so it's more to do with not paying the $42 every year.
We would take the not having a state kennel license as evidence that she didn't have a kennel.
Because it'd be hard to prove that they didn't have any dogs, they could say they did.
It's hard to prove negatives.
Right, it'd be impossible to prove that they didn't have any dogs, is what I'm
But
saying.
if,
But if they didn't pay their $42, then they would lose it.
yes,
Is that how that works?
yes.
Okay. Now what about this permit that she's getting? Can she board dogs with the permit that she's getting?
We'll see what happens when we make up the conditions for the permit.
Okay,
Chris,
great.
could I speak on that?
Yes,
So, even though she's getting the CUP from the town, she would still, the kennel license that Tammy gets is specific for hunting dogs. She would have to apply with the state to get a state breeding kennel or boarding kennel
But that's
license.
pretty easy to do, all you gotta do is pay the $42 and fill out the form.
Well, it's more than $42.
Well, whatever it is, all you have to do is fill the
Anyways,
form out and pay it.
but the state would send agents out, state comes down, they do investigations, they do inspections, and then Tammy would have to go through their process, not just the town's process. So even though the town is potentially going to give her the conditional use permit, she still, if Tammy, and I know Tammy doesn't have any interest in doing a boarding kennel or breeding kennel, if she did, she'd still have another level that she'd have to go to with the state.
What about the town? Would you have to go back to the town?
That's up to you guys.
Because it's pretty easy, from my understanding, to get a kennel permit from the state.
It's easy to get a kennel permit as an owner from the state. Breeding and boarding is way different. They send agents down to inspect. You get
My neighbor, the
inspected twice a
paradise kennel
year.
hasn't been inspected in years.
Okay, call the state.
10 years.
Speak
No,
to
I don't
them.
believe it's that much of that. What I wanna do is make sure that this doesn't turn into a boarding kennel, because she has no building that's soundproof to house dogs that you're getting paid to keep. That's what I
So,
wanna make sure.
And Tammy,
Scott,
we
hang on.
hear you saying, you know, that you're not going to, so.
Everything is fine unless you get it in writing. That's
Hang
what we
on.
learned from the last time. So
Hang
we
on.
need it in writing.
Scott, wait, whoa,
Okay.
Tammy,
Yes, sir.
would you mind having a condition on your permit that you would have no more than 9 dogs and that they would be hunting dogs?
I don't mind at all.
Okay.
In fact, all my dogs are spayed and neutered, so it won't be a breeding kennel.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
we just.
everybody's aware of that.
I guess, Tammy, what we're doing, I know you, and I know what you say is what you're gonna do. But, these people have been through a rather upsetting experience, albeit in the past. But, they want assurances that something like that won't happen again. I know it won't happen with you, so I'm asking you if you mind we make it legal that it won't happen with you. We put in the legal language, that's all.
You may do that.
Great, thank you.
That she won't board them too, you mean? I heard you say
Yeah,
that she won't breed them.
Put it in writing that you won't board them and that
Okay.
it won't continue with the
Not a
land.
problem?
No problem. I
And it
do
won't
have a
continue
spare
with the land.
bedroom, but
Excuse me?
I do have a spare bedroom. So, you know,
Yeah,
but there's no boarding, there's no more dogs,
yeah.
you know.
I thought you were offering me a.
No, if you'd like, yeah, I can say that, no. Not a problem.
Okay.
And Tammy, you know the history we had with another neighbor, right?
I know all about it.
So hunting dogs only, that excludes anything else, breeding or whatever. And they also wanted to extinguish with your ownership. So if you ever sell your house it will not continue as.
That's for you guys with the town of Baldwin.
So you don't mind if we put that on?
If you need to put that on, you may put it on.
You wanna say something?
No, we'll.
Do. Well, Josiah, real quick, I would like to see if you folks could amend the hunting dogs only, because if down the road Tammy decides to get another dog to stay in her 9-dog limit, hunting breeds are specific, and if she doesn't want another beagle,
Yeah.
or if she doesn't want another lab, she wants a poodle.
Yeah.
Poodles are not considered hunting dogs in the state of Maine.
Right.
So
Okay.
I would just amend that it be 9-dog limit, not specific to hunting dogs.
9 dogs and no boarding.
And no boarding, no breeding.
Well, you know, when you look in the definitions, Joe, under kennel, there's types of kennels, boarding kennel and breeding kennel. We can just specify that this CUP is, for a kennel, but it's neither a boarding kennel nor a breeding kennel. It's just, a license, a kennel license to keep more than 5 dogs.
Yep.
You know, and that's.
Companion dogs like the
Yeah,
street
that's
dogs.
companion license,
That's
yeah,
in the
perfect.
conditions, so that
That would be
if
great.
somebody moved
Excellent.
in, they can't start a boarding kennel
That's
or
what you
a
write down,
breeding
Mr.
kennel or
Chairman.
anything like that.
Okay,
So, you know, you build some controls in.
that's perfect.
If
It
I'm not
sounds really
mistaken, there's
travel.
another category that's
We let
called
it happen.
shelter,
Yeah,
Like an
there's
amphitheater.
2 separate, there's a kennel and then there's a shelter.
and there's a shelter. Would this qualify as a shelter?
No.
Okay.
She'd also,
Chain link fence.
yeah, no, it doesn't,
It wouldn't be a shelter. So we could go with the companion?
you could go with the
Just for
companion, yeah.
So do you have their, application?
Probably do.
I always try to do stuff like that to you, because you keep track of things.
I represent the house.
So we do have this,
Okay, that's the one.
okay.
So, I do have a copy of it. I didn't bring it.
You guys all set?
One other question
Yes.
for the dog officer.
They said.
Sure.
Do you treat the barking dog ordinance different with kennels and homeowners?
No.
Okay,
The barking
we were
dog
told
ordinance is
differently
the same.
before, but you're a new guy, that's great.
Yeah, barking
I love
dog
hearing
ordinance
that.
is the same across the board.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if you have a kennel.
So
The
it's-
only
okay.
exemption to barking dogs are working farm dogs.
Yes.
Okay, but that's kind of scary, because that's vague.
It is very vague,
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
the
the
scary
state law, there's not, we actually just dealt with it up the street here.
Yeah, we read.
Any type of breed can be a farm dog, though. Even though
I
I
know.
just said there's only certain hunting dogs, any type of breed could be a working farm dog. So, yeah, so there is exemptions for.
But there's gotta be a way that somebody that's unreasonable that has a dog that they say is protecting their farm animals, when really, all it's really doing is barking, because I've never heard of a coyote attacking a horse in Maine. So she's saying that I have a horse that might get attacked by a coyote, so I need to leave my dog out all the time. Somebody's gotta be able to stop that. And if they gotta change something in the law, or you gotta be able to, because we have to
If
be
you can come up
protected.
with a way, I'd be happy to enforce it.
We have to be protected as homeowners to enjoy the privacy, the peace and quiet of our home, and nobody has the right to take that away.
Yeah.
So we're getting off topic.
No, I know.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted, that was great, thank you, perfect.
Okay, but, in your application, you had hunting dog, but we can say companion dogs.
Yep.
I just had a comment and then one additional question. I do think it's admirable to be taking care of geriatric dogs, especially so many, so I certainly do not want anyone to have them taken away. I did see that you, did a site visit. Will this permit include any additional, regular visits in the future, or is it just a permit granted and then you don't check in on the environment that the dogs are kept any longer?
I'll let Ricky answer.
So,
Thanks.
sorry, I want to see you while I talk. with the CUP, she still has to apply for the state municipal kennel license, and that entails an inspection yearly.
Okay.
So there is a yearly inspection.
Oh, because of the state.
Well,
The state?
the state, because she gets a kennel license issued by the municipal clerk, but it's for the state, she gets inspected annually.
Isn't there a clause in the Baldwin Town one that says that it's inspected by the animal control officer once a year too? I thought I had read that, though I'm not sure.
What's that?
I don't know.
Is that the 2018 one? The ordinance?
I will attempt to find it.
That's on page 38, kennels and veterinary hospitals, those are the, I don't see anything about CEO.
So I need a section number because my pagination.
10.7.
How, what, .7?
10.
10.
So that's under definitions.
No, under section 10.
Kennel inspection.
An animal control officer must inspect annually kennels prior to the municipal issuing a kennel license. The kennel must meet state standards.
But who does the inspection?
It says an animal control officer.
That's the state license.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with the CUP.
No.
No.
So you're the one that inspects it or the state?
What was that?
Do you inspect or do the state?
I inspect.
Oh, okay.
For the kennel license, for the hunting kennel, the show kennel, that's stuff like that, I inspect. If it's a boarding kennel or a breeding kennel, the state inspects, because you're bringing other dogs in and you're
Okay.
selling dogs.
Okay.
So that's when the state would inspect.
So this one will be inspected by you because it's not boarding or,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
Yeah. Which, as I said earlier, Ms. Doyle every year calls the office. Right?
Yep.
We have record of that.
Perfect. Yep.
The Cumberland County Regional Communications does all of our documenting for us, and we can show that she's called in and requested that inspection. We have inspection forms here that get attached to her municipal kennel license. So.
Okay,
We're good, yep.
okay.
You should look up the barking dog ordinance.
Oh, we know that like the back of our hand. Believe me, the first 12 years of Paradise was a nightmare.
And if Norm was still here, he
It
would
wasn't
tell.
Norm, it was Dick McGoldrick.
Dick McGoldrick.
I think Norm wrote the barking dog ordinance, and it stands up in court.
That's what we
It didn't
thought.
with us, though.
Well, that anyways, we don't want to go to Paradise. Thank you, I appreciate that. I will alleviate some.
So what are the conditions we're putting on this, besides our standard conditions?
License is for 9 companion dogs, number one. The second one is that, wouldn't carry with the property, would expire with the Doyles when they sold the property, the kennel license.
Do we have a motion?
We gotta do more than that.
Okay, so what do you think we should do?
Well, isn't there like standards in here?
Yeah.
So we can set it, but,
So besides the standard conditions,
Well,
where are you at? Yeah.
Lots of dogs.
So 10.7 says we're gonna do a bunch of stuff. So we have to make sure, so we gotta put a condition in about structures. Structures or pens for housing or containing the animals shall not be located less than 100 feet from the nearest residence.
so David, you weren't at the site walk. They take the animals into their house at night.
Right, but
There are no structures.
okay, but then we have to have a condition that she's not gonna have structures, there'll be no exterior structures of the animal.
I would think that would be covered in the ordinance.
Well, they have pens.
They do have fence?
They do.
With tops around it.
It's just chain link fence, that's all it is, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a dog pen.
All right.
They're in your dooryard.
And it's wrapped in black,
Yeah.
breathable fencing.
So are there any design, construction, or location issues to minimize the adverse effects on surrounding property?
So they have
Rid of anything efficient, like, do we wanna add anything on?
do we want to add anything on? They have, as far as I can see, or as far as I saw, they have done things already to mitigate surrounding property. They've had the dogs for 9 years and not received complaints, and Mr. Giroux says they received no complaints.
That doesn't mean it hasn't been barking that's bothered us.
Yeah,
No.
a couple times we came close
Yeah.
over the years, but it's loud when 9 dogs bark.
I get it.
What he's saying makes sense because, you don't want them to come in and build some structures that let the dogs stay out much longer than they do now. And another thing is, the chain link fence with plastic, with tarps around it, doesn't really do much to block the noise. So they're not doing much now to block the noise.
Have we closed the public hearing yet?
Yeah, we could do that.
Why don't we do that?
Okay.
No offense.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah.
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay, we've closed the public hearing.
So I guess my concern is just, like, do we have to have a condition that they'll maintain the current design to minimize the effect on the surrounding property? I'm not so concerned about this one, I'm concerned about future.
Well, that's why we have made it so that this conditional use permit will not run with the land.
Right, but like I said, I'm not concerned with her compliance, I'm concerned with future applications that come in front of us when we use this as a Templar of what a kennel should look like. And,
That lawyerly concern for precedence.
well, I mean, so let's just keep going, so the next one is, temporary storage containers, they're tight, they're emptied no less than 4 times once every 4 days, okay, let's put that aside. If there's outdoor dog run, it has to be completely fenced in, shall be paved with cement, asphalt, or a similar material to provide cleanliness, ease of maintenance. Are there outdoor dog runs?
No, it's one huge fence. It's fenced in, they have plenty of places to go,
So you have the whole backyard?
off to the side of the house.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's all fenced in.
So we should make a finding whether that's a dog run or not. If it's not, then she doesn't have to comply with this particular, provision.
I would find that it is not a dog run.
Okay.
It is not paved, but it's larger than, more square footage per animal than a dog run would normally be.
But it's not a contained environment that they can run back and forth.
Right, it's a contained environment, they can run around in circles.
David, I think one thing we could suggest here is that they don't change what they have.
Yeah, that's.
You know, that they don't
Or
put dog
materially
runs in.
change without coming back
No
to it,
material,
yeah.
right, that, the facility they have now constructed is what remains.
You don't have any sort of incinerating device of,
They compost the manure.
No, we compost.
No garbage, feces, or other waste materials shall be allowed to accumulate on the premises. So we're gonna do a finding that the composting is not accumulation?
I would find that, yes.
Okay. Yeah, there's this incinerating device, doesn't sound like it has an incinerating device. And then you're supposed to look at the performance standards of Article 9.
That's access to the display or industrial or resource.
Those are the standard things we look at.
Okay. And then are we gonna put a restriction that the applicant's not allowed to seek a breeding kennel or boarding kennel permit?
Yes,
Okay.
by saying that it
It's
is
only for a companion kennel,
We don't define companion though.
or maybe we should.
So, if we just say it's not for
Not for
breeding
breeding,
or boarding,
do it that way, go, that's,
by
right, that's
definition,
fine.
it has to be.
By definition, that's,
Didn't you say it was something like, there was like, so if it's not a breeding, if it's not boarding, what is it? If it's not breeding, if it's not a breeding kennel and it's not a boarding kennel, what is it?
So they can, kennel license can be issued for, the following purposes: breeding, boarding, hunting, show, training, field trials, sledding, competition, exhibition purposes, which is like, doing the dogs through the tunnels and stuff like that. But they have to fall in that category for a for a state kennel license.
So if they're not hunting dogs, but they're a pack of poodles, but they're not for all those other things you just mentioned, what kind of a kennel is it?
They would not qualify for a state kennel. Which,
So if there's a pack of poodles, that doesn't qualify, but a pack of
unless you could
poodles
unless you could prove that you use them for show, exhibition, something like that. So.
Okay. So why don't we just say it's not a breeding or boarding kennel?
I think that's the way to go. I'm not trying to put words
He'd have been upset by now.
And then do we want
That's
to,
why I'm here.
should it poodles? But then, do we also want to put anything in that they won't be left outside at night, since it's not something?
Can I
you
make
do?
a correction on that?
Yeah.
Please. My dogs have never, ever, as long as I've owned them, been left out in a pen at night.
Which is awesome, no, that's.
Right,
that's-
and also on the other thing, they're not out at 5 o'clock in the morning. We get up, we do our thing, they might be out by 6:30. But they are not out any earlier than that.
I have a dog, and I can say just about the same thing unless they get skunked, and then they do spend the night in the shed.
I have no.
That's the only time that they stay outside.
Yeah,
So maybe if they never do it, then the next, like, the tighter we make the restrictions that work with you, the better it is for future situations.
yeah, I understand.
So if we say there's no boarding outside, that takes care of a whole bunch of noise issues at night that other a traditional kennel may have.
Yep.
That you don't.
Yeah, no, I think it's working with Tammy to say that you have to do what you're doing. I mean, you know, and I'm sorry that this is the way bureaucracy works.
Oh, and I understand that, that's
Yeah.
why I'm just sitting here quietly.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
It's all gonna end well, don't worry. Doesn't look good getting there.
So from, leaving the dogs out at night, should we say that the dogs are inside from
daylight.
5:30 at night till, well, no, it's.
Well, they go over, they'll have potty calls during the night, but I am with them and they're not barking.
I was just trying to think of, how to put this, because night in the winter is different from night in the summer.
Yeah.
But what about you saying they won't be
But my-
boarded at outside at night? I mean,
Right.
They won't be boarded.
overnight,
No.
they won't be boarded outside
They're
overnight.
never left outside, period,
Yeah.
summer, spring, fall, winter,
Kept outside, I'm using.
Yeah,
right, they're not.
okay.
Cause then that takes away the need for external housing, takes away a whole bunch of issues that we could have with other types of.
Okay. Yep,
I have a question.
yes.
I've been up at 2 o'clock in the morning, getting my ex out to go fishing, doing many things at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah,
Or
me too.
hunting or fishing or whatever, and the coyotes are howling like crazy.
Yep.
How do you determine whether it's somebody's dog or not?
Well, how I do it is I go to Rick and I say, Rick, it's your problem.
I mean, 'cause they're everywhere around our,
No,
around our area.
I get it.
Yeah, and I just wonder. It's
I've
something
even
that I
gone
know
out and
that
fired guns at night because I wanted to get them away from my sheep.
Yep.
You know, so,
But I just don't know how you determine which is
Well,
which.
not gonna lie, barking dog complaints are hard to prove. Which,
But if it's a repeated problem, that's.
but if it is a repeated problem and we can pinpoint the problem, then it's easy to deal with.
Right.
this is one of the problems with there not having been complaints. Because I've been looking at the map and there's another place in the area that had a lot of dogs. And it's only slightly further distant from Cindy and Scott than
Yeah,
Tammy's
we're aware
place.
of that one, yeah.
And, I'm very aware of how sound travels around here. You can have something that's right next to you within 100 yards and you can't hear them, and some other place that's half a mile away and it sounds like they're right on top of you. I mean, you know, we all know.
Yeah, I just curious.
So that's why it's Ricky's problem, not mine.
Yeah. It's one of those.
And the only other thing I'd add is I think we should expressly say that the barking dog ordinance still applies to the
Yes.
kennel.
Oh, sure.
So if there was a concern, I don't think it should be, but just in case.
No, sure, okay.
That's all I got, sorry.
Thank you.
You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I understand what you're doing, you know, yeah.
You need
So-
a motion to, approve the CUP with the conditions as, delineated?
Do we have a second? Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Okay, then the motion carries. unanimously. Thank you. Well, you're good, and Don will get you a copy of your conditional use permit,
That would be awesome.
okay?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome. I need to see you at some point too.
Hey, I'm leaving right now, you guys are done with me.
Yep, we're done with you. Thank you very much, Ricky.
Thanks for
I
coming,
really
Rick.
appreciate you coming. That's-
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank the board too for
Yeah, thank you
listening
for
to us.
that.
All right.
Thank you.
We don't make any complaints, we don't make any trouble.
Jibo, just the way they taught you in French class.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Nature's Wilderness RV Park. You guys are on.
Here we go. More goodies for everybody.
And David will take over this part of the meeting.
So this just has the phase 2 that we talked about. The 24 lots, it doesn't have anything with the other extensions that we had previously shown. We're just going for the 24 on this one. So I revised the CUP It's same before, but I updated just for 24, as we discussed. And then at the end, there's also some additional information with the, certificates of good standing and that kind of stuff, based on the questions that came via email today, you can respond to that.
I have those.
Yeah.
I also have a letter from my attorney regarding the entities that we utilize that own the property.
But just bring everybody up to speed, because not everybody's on the email. So I looked at the,
That's from the attorney.
I looked at the,
That's your email.
the CUP package, and, in the packet, on the drawings, there was, a name of, an LLC that I haven't seen before. And then
Which one was that you hadn't seen before?
I believe the Modern America was on the plan.
Modern American Campgrounds LLC was on the plan, and then I have this habit.
Yeah, that's, yeah, sure.
So I have this habit of every time we have an applicant, I go on the Maine Corporation's website to see if they're actually registered to do business in Maine, because sometimes they haven't been. And so when I went to look at Modern American Campgrounds LLC, it's not registered to do business in Maine. So that just kind of raised a red flag. And then I looked at the application, and it's NWRRV LLC, which is registered to do, it's a Maine LLC. And then there's like a couple other LLCs that are NWR, but forget those.
Yeah, so you were picking up Scott Efron entities that are defunct. My entity is NWR RV LLC, that owns the property. Okay, then there's NWR GP RV LLC, that is involved in the ownership of NWR RV LLC. Then we have multiple layers behind that, and there's a letter from my attorney, Mike Hill and Kyle Flaherty at Monahan Leahy, that basically explains, and I have certificates of good standing for all of my entities that the board should be concerned with. Modern America was an error on their behalf. That's just a shell company that we use because we have 18 parks, and we just call them all Modern America. But they all are standalone LLCs at the site level, and we do that for liability reasons.
And David, just so, I just wanted to point out, I updated the plans to be the NWRR. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure on that, that's the one that's on the application, that's the one for the main, so I just.
And I also asked if there was any connection between NWRRV LLC and Nature's Wilderness LLC, or Nature's Wilderness Resort LLC.
No, that was all Efron from years ago.
So I could just understand what was going on. So, Derek is giving us a letter, I could pass this.
Yeah, the certificates of good standing for the three entities, but you really should only be interested in NWR RV LLC, because that's the entity that owns it, and then there are multiple entities behind that, and my attorney explains that, and you've got all the certificates of good standing for all of our entities that you should be concerned with. And then I also have, I had to get you a work letter for Rogue.
Oh.
Okay, so this is my engagement letter from Bernstein Sure. They're writing up that letter, and they're also representing us on any future questions in park expansion we may have for the development.
So that answers my question about the corporate entity. It's just, I just like to know who we're dealing with, that's all, you know, make sure.
NWRRV LLC.
Okay.
The only other thing I was gonna point out is, in the CUP there is one additional attachment, wasn't the last one, it's that, compliance with the CUP that I submitted last time in the letter, I just added to the attachment 18 to CUP, just so it's all in one binding for you guys.
Okay.
So,
So I guess what we're here for is to kind of have any questions we might have about the proposal before the public hearing. I think the key was for them to submit the final CUP information so we could throw it up on the internet, on that website, prior to the sidewalk. So does anybody have any questions about the application? I have a couple if you want to start.
I haven't, you know, I feel like I just got, in a sense.
I actually find it easier to read on the computer.
Oh, I can't read it on the computer.
I have one of those big monitors, so it makes sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, split prints for me. I mean, this is what I'll go home and unfold and look at and read.
Is there, down by the road there, you got the lake on one side, and you have some water area on the other side? On each side of the road, there's water, right? It's like a holding pond on one side?
Yeah. Stormwater.
Yeah. And then there's the pond. Yes, yep.
Is there any plans to change the size of the pond, the water area on
This one?
on this side? Yeah.
No, that's oversized for the development, so it'll be fine to treat all this, and then anything later would be stormwater buffers.
No, I meant more, you can make it smaller, just like saying what it is today.
No, there's no plans to make it smaller.
Okay.
Why would you want it small? I'm just curious.
I don't want it smaller, I was just curious, I mean, when I look at the topography, it's pretty tight in there, what you're doing. It's just, I wasn't sure if there's enough room in there for what you're trying to do without shrinking the size of that little pond, or whatever you wanna call it, reservoir, or whatever it is.
It looks small on here. This actually, the fire department does pump testing, and they pull their fire trucks up right alongside of here. There's plenty of room for, and they're off the road.
I mean on the other, no, I mean on the campsite.
Yeah, that's where they park.
Yeah.
They take it out of the stormwater retention
Okay.
pond.
And I noticed in the new plans, it says 468, and the old were 462, I think I used 452 at one point, but,
What's that for?
the size of the lot, the total size of the lot, is that just being really specific, it's 468?
Yeah, it's of the area there where we have the.
By the way, that acreage may move by 5 acres, because I addressed Mrs. Bernadette Monette's concern. So I've had correspondence as recently as today with her attorney, Jeff Jones. He's put a quick claim deed together. He has the entities that he needs to, send over to us. Wonderfully nice guy. I sent him over a schematic of my engineer. He's in agreement. It's about 5 acres, and so I am addressing that issue. And we don't foresee any problems. I've let my lender know, and I do need to notify my bank as well as the appraiser. I don't see it impacting the valuation of the loan that I have up there. If there is, I'll take care of it, but my banker said I don't think you're gonna have a problem. So I am addressing your concern.
I kind of assumed that was working out.
It is.
That's not here tonight.
Yeah, it's a very nice lady, and she has a very nice attorney, so it's being addressed.
I mentioned to you the other night, about Jack Murphy. Jack called me several times 5-6 years ago, 4 years ago. He had a problem with trespass by bulldozer with Scott Efron. And it was, I couldn't really understand what he was talking about. But he had property line issues. And as I say, there was a bulldozer involved. I don't know if you guys have an established property line.
So we've looked into your concern.
Yeah.
And we're on the impression there really is no concern.
Great.
But just to let you know, I'm very proactive.
Yeah.
If anyone has a problem, I will absolutely address it,
Yeah.
and I will not wait a minute.
No, that,
Okay.
great,
Yeah.
I'm learning about you, Derek.
Yeah, so I'm just letting you know you had a concern, and I've addressed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you guys do anything about your property lines? Do you paint I paint my property lines.
You wanna paint mine, you're more than welcome to.
No.
Saturday afternoon, I'll give you a case of beer, and you can bang out 1,000 acres.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's definitely on my, list to do, things to do.
Great. I mean, that's not a condition I would talk about, but
Yeah, no,
as a landowner, I talk about.
Yeah, so, I mean, as you know, we closed the property last March.
Yep.
The first 5 or 6 months, we're trying to figure the property out.
Yeah.
But, I'm starting to get familiar with who my neighbors are, and who's who, and any issues.
Good.
And they do occur, and if they do, I address it, and I'm actually getting more familiar with the property,
Great.
so.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
as for staking it, I don't know, yeah, I guess I guess I'll put it on my list, right?
Yeah,
So-
right, yeah. I got one of those lists.
Yeah, so as you know, we haven't harvested timber up there, so I'm not very familiar with,
Yeah,
unlike some of our other properties where I know exactly where the properties are lined,
yeah,
where they are, because the foresters marked them for us,
Yeah.
so. But, at some point I'll get there, it's just not a priority yet.
no, I just
Very good
wanted to
concern, and I share
have
it.
the conversation.
Good question. Yep.
Other questions, comments, concerns, curiosities?
David, you guys okay if there's a little snow on the ground for the, Saturday sidewalk? If there's snow? I mean, we could plow it if you want us to, I mean, you let me know what you wanna, Mr. Kent, I'm not sure.
If I could interject for a second, I was over there today, and they've clearly marked where each of the lots is going to be, and they've marked out where the pool is going to be, and they've got a good big area plowed out for parking over there. So it's laid out so you can see it without traipsing through deep snow.
Does it make any difference if we wait a week?
That would be up to you. The only question I would have.
As long as we don't get more snow.
We may get that northeaster on Tuesday. It would be a case where they have to remark everything.
So whether tomorrow, what's it looking like?
Snow.
Yeah, I think we might get a lot of snow melt, and you might be all right for Saturday. And it's right there, I mean, I know you've all been to the site, but it's.
So this is all plowed, all the way up to here, half all the site. And I went up today and I put orange stakes on all the corners, and I only needed orange where the parking is, green where the grass is gonna be, they're all numbered. So you go all the way down through, same thing with all the way down through here, it's all plowed to here, it's plowed to here, and there's a walking path, through here. But you can clearly see. from
You
here,
can see everything.
You can clearly
Yeah.
see orange stakes, orange paint.
There were no
numbers,
trees.
And
It's right in front of you, it's like a wide open field, to be honest with you.
And it's already in the same envelope we've already done the site walk on, nothing's changed, it's an open field.
They did get a lot of orange paint all over my car, but that's the way.
It might be better for attendance if we stuck with this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can always say, look at it, if we don't think we saw enough because of the snow, we can say we can do it again. If we have to.
They've drawn lines around each and every site, and you can clearly see that from the front road.
Speaking of the road, the gentleman, we're working on the work letter for the road.
Great.
As we speak.
Great.
And that's, Bernstein Shore out of Portland's handling that.
Yep.
Beth Smith's the attorney, and I'll probably have it for you next week. Now, should I bring it to a selectman meeting, or should I send it to you? How would you like it?
Either way.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, but I should hopefully have it next week.
Great.
That's pretty much it, I think, from a legal standpoint.
Great. I'm glad that's getting wrapped up.
What is that?
An agreement on maintaining the road.
Yeah.
Because the town maintenance of the road, the Marston Pond Road, town maintenance of the road would not be up to Derek's standards. If we grade it once a year.
It's a little cheaper if I maintain the road too.
And, I can.
The town doesn't have to pay for it, so I'll gladly take care of it, and I'll take care of it to a standard. Because obviously I have customers that are paying me top dollar to stay here, So, you know, our interests are aligned for me to maintain that road, 'cause
We're trying to be a good neighbor to our neighbors on the road coming in,
Yeah.
so we want a nice road for them and us.
and we've got plenty of heavy equipment in the area.
Great. Yeah. Well, we take a look at it, we're gonna have to shop it through our attorney as well.
Sure.
Because the legal precedent has been set in court that you don't do it.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you can't, but we'll look at it.
Yeah.
I think the case law goes back to the 1850s.
You know, I did share that with my attorney. I asked that question, and she said, I believe you can. So,
Well,
we'll figure it out, right?
We'll look at it,
Yeah, but I did look into that, because I know you mentioned that briefly, and I asked her that. I said, you know, one of the gentlemen has a concern, we may not even be able to maintain it. And she said, well, I think you can, I'll look into it, which I'll look into it.
We'll consider it.
Yep. But I just want to be proactive and address it, that's all.
Is there any plan to change the existing character of any of the campsites? Like if they're not RV sites now, or is there any?
Moving forward, all I want is RV sites. I'm not putting cabin sites anywhere, and I am all 100% locked and loaded RV sites.
Nothing's changing with the phase one.
I understand that, phase one.
Nothing's changing with that, that's
Okay.
staying the same, and all the new ones are the RV sites, and then they, yeah.
Yeah, I'm all RV.
Right,
But
the only change is the pool. From that,
Yeah.
everything.
Of the existing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else from the existing is staying as is.
And the pool was such a pain in the ass the first time.
It'll be easier on the second one, I promise.
Well, I'm getting rid of it for you.
Kathy, since you're here, you know, one of the issues that we dealt with the last time around was the signage and people getting lost and turning around at your farm and upsetting your horses and everything like that. And we're gonna get new, clearer signs so people didn't drive past and everything. And now, you know, the signage improvements to Senator Black Road has been crossed out on the CUP. And then it says, note, it's our understanding that the road commissioner and several area residents, I'm assuming that includes you, decided that the signs were going to negatively impact the rural character of the area and were ultimately not necessary. The board can discuss this issue with the applicant. So I just want to bring that up now and make sure that we don't have neighbors or anybody that is looking for better signage so that big RVs aren't missing the entrance and wandering around.
Everybody's got one of these, we don't need signs anymore.
Yeah,
Everybody
you're right.
that comes to my house goes to Marion's instead because GPS is so good. No, I have absolutely no issue with
Right.
any signage. I have to say that from the get-go, the Rocky Road has become smoother and smoother. I did have a long talk with Gary last year. We ended up in many, many agreements, one of them being his appreciation of the fact that we called the state and got them involved with some of the things that were happening down there, and thanked us for it, which to me was, after everything that happened and all of the baloney with dealing with Scott, really was a positive thing for me. There's been no issues with RVs. People that have come by the farm have been really nice. Everything feels entirely different. I mean, my first encounter with Nature's Wilderness was riding my horse down Marston Pond Road and having Scott almost come right at us with a bulldozer, and it went downhill from there. So.
Well, I'm sure it is. I'm glad the sign issues, all, squared away. And we don't need, there's no need for a sign at the intersection of Senator Black Road and 113. Because that was something we were talking about, too.
That would seem not feasible.
Yeah.
Because of
The owner is an obstreperous bastard.
There wasn't an agreement.
I didn't wanna get that specific.
We say curmudgeon to be nice.
I think Nora came out with that, yeah.
So, okay, great.
Any other questions while we have them here before we go to a public meeting?
I would doubt that the public meeting will be as well attended as historical, Nature's Wilderness meetings. I think that it'll cause less stir than it has in the past, so. That's just.
I hope so.
being a good neighbor.
We wanna be good neighbors, we really do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no,
You can see from what we're saying, what you're
Yeah,
up
if
against.
you have any concerns, just reach out and I'll address them.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, I'll try to do my best.
Yeah, thank you.
So, thank you.
I feel that a campground is a great use of the land, and it's possible. to do
Yeah,
great
it
neighborhood.
is. I mean, we get people from all over the United States that come up here and they tell us what a wonderful place Maine is. You know, I never realized how beautiful it is up here. And, it's nice to hear. And I get emails all the time from people that just talk about the community and how much they loved it and, you know, the seashore and the, you know,
great
foliage and whatnot, so. Anyhow.
I think we're good to go.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
9 a.m. on Saturday? 9 a.m.?
9 a.m.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, have a good day. Yep. Bye-bye. Good.
You know, Joe, I am a little concerned about barking dogs. I have Jen's dog Teddy that keeps the coyotes at bay. Luckily, I have a farm, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have a shotgun that keeps the coyotes at bay.
Wow. Yeah, I got.
That's louder than a barking dog.
That is, I'm sure it is. But on occasion, it seems like a good idea, but I'm pretty mellow also. Time for the dog. Good to see everybody.
So correspondence, I handed out, a letter that both the planning board got and I got personally. The applicant's notice of intent to file an application. So we went on a site walk. This is in a development, in a subdivision. And I didn't know if the board had any opinion about this. If you remember, this is the guy who had the platform. And the small house with the deck the same size as you.
That's the one we went to the site, well, yeah, we did the site.
All the batteries
Yeah.
The solar cells by the river, yeah, okay.
all down by the river.
Yeah, and I think the town property maps are very inaccurate about where the property is.
So what's the issue?
I don't know. I don't know if there's an issue. I'm asking you.
I thought they already built something.
They already built something. I don't know. I don't know. Do you know, Don?
He was living in something.
He built a cabin down there.
Yeah.
There were phone calls in the fall, that septic system needed to be inspected and all the internal plumbing needed to be inspected before he sheetrocked it, but there were no permits for any of the work. So obviously that didn't happen. And I was rather concerned with the fact that the garden area was a spot park, and I'm not sure that that's appropriate in the watershed.
When we did the site walk, there was no septic system in place.
Well, it would be nice if we had a copy of it, or be paid on behalf of the.
Everything was under construction, and he said, well, it's under construction, but there was no evidence of septic system.
I don't know where they came from.
They've been there for years.
At this point, they need to come in and get some permits if they're gonna do it.
And how are they accessing the property?
They were going across what they call Riley Gingerdale.
Yeah.
But they had a temporary use of that, and it expired, I believe, either late last year or sometime this year. And what I gathered from Wes is that they have a right-of-way along the power lines to get down there. Sounds a bit sketchy to me. The plans that they have with the Saco River Corridor Commission, it looks like you go around the circle at the end of that Firefly development and you go straight back, but it doesn't seem to me that that's an option you can take.
We specifically told them they couldn't do that.
That's what they have on what was sent to me anyway.
The subdivision, didn't we modify the subdivision? It has the road where they need to put it in.
Yes.
Like it's on the subdivision map.
So where are the subdivision plans? David, you're the only one who knows.
I'm not sure they exist. There's a modification. Y'all modified it. I don't know the modification. We can look.
There's quite a file on this that they have, and I'm not exactly sure. The Saco River.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And apparently he's applying to do whatever. And it looked, as I read through it, like his intent is to build a house there, and this is gonna be called a guest cottage, what he's got there now. I don't know a whole lot about it.
Well, y'all remember, this is the property that I refused, I thought it was a bad choice.
It was bogus to approve it, and once we got rolled over by the fact that it was already built.
So now he's gonna build something bigger.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, apparently, I had tried to call him back, but his mailbox was always full, which is not
This is not a new
typical
thing, John.
of pot farmers either, because they don't
I
want the
remember
road
this
people
from a year
calling
ago.
them. And given he hasn't pulled any permits, I would have to say that whatever he's done in there is illegal, because he hasn't paid for or obtained any permits. So that may be something you want to consider, I don't know.
Well, that's something you consider, not us, you.
Well, I mean, in terms of granting him any further uses of the property.
Yeah, he hasn't applied for anything to us either.
When you say he hasn't pulled any permits, I thought the whole thing started because West gave him a building permit.
For a cabin.
Yeah.
But we didn't get a plumbing permit, and it was the first week I was here, I went down there with Wes, which is when I saw all the power plants, and I have an issue with that. But apparently the septic design in his mind was gonna be very expensive because it's so near the river. And they were trying to get that altered. And it looks like they might be trying to do a different kind of a system or something, I'm not really sure. But they don't have permits for anything except to build a cabin. But if you're gonna use it, and have plumbing and such in it, you need permits for all of that, and for the septic, especially in that corridor where it's supposed to the river. And I wouldn't call it a garden area where it's in fact a pot farm, but I'm not sure if they're aware of that or not, or if it would make a difference to them. It should.
The issue of the pot farm, how does that square with our marijuana ordinances, recreational one and medicinal?
The law they have now, you need a license for it, which they do not have. It's gotta be a production facility. And for personal use, I think you can have 2 plants or something like that.
But that's not.
I thought it was
No, it's not,
I thought it
it's
was-
not a couple and no, it's
This
not
is like 40 or 50 or
That's
something.
not-
say
that's not
about
for us.
100 plants, okay.
That's not for golf.
Okay,
There's
yeah,
nothing.
he needs to have a caregiver license or medicinal.
When I was there, he said they were dead.
That doesn't matter.
We have a pot expert here.
Well,
I know, but the issue is, we do have ordinances, one for medical and one for recreation.
But that's selling,
no.
but they would manufacturing, not, I don't think they're growing in that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can have it. That there,
I agree.
there are limits on what you can grow. Now, what you can do personally, at the state licensing level, I think there's a limit to the number of plants you can have your own personal use.
I think it's
Yeah.
like 2 or 3.
5, I think.
And so,
This was not 5.
No, this was
But
many
I
more than
believe-
Many more than 5.
oh, I know, I was down there, I saw it.
Okay, yeah.
I believe the ordinances that the town has would require a conditional use permit to cover facilities, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
so, there's a number of issues down there.
There are.
So, issues are yours. We don't do issues.
Okay.
We give them permission.
The whole thing is in the Firefly Ridge.
As I've been told many times, you don't enforce the rules, you just write them.
Yeah.
Right, but apparently there's some regret for the rules that were written regarding that subdivision. I don't wanna get caught in the middle of something.
So, the next thing was why Jermaine Falk and Elizabeth Brown are here. So, Don and I are working out how we will relate to each other, the board and the CEO. We previously did not relate to the CEO very well at all. And I think Don and I are getting along fairly well. I don't tell you about all the correspondence we have. We see each other every Tuesday night at the selectmen's meeting, and it's Tuesday night that I set the agenda, which I send out to Robin on Wednesday. He and I kind of work it out. In the past, we have allowed people to come into us and say, here's my application, or here's my amended application. And Don has pointed out section 8.2 that we should look at, because it says that anything that is submitted must be submitted to the CEO, and that he will, here we go. An application for a conditional use permit shall be made to the code enforcement officer, not to the planning board. Application for a conditional use permit shall be made to the code enforcement officer on forms provided for the purpose, accompanied by such fee as may be established by the town for such applications. The application shall, and then it lists what it shall do. But I wanted to point that out to everybody. We have been more informal than that in the past. And Don had a case where he wanted to tighten that up.
It was mostly, excuse me, mostly specific to the way they're handling it. And they would very much like to sweep a whole lot of issues under the rug.
And that's a good way to do it, it just do a tap dance.
One that comes to mind is, I have an email from Jermaine Falk, which I can print out, that states there was no slab, there were no drains, there was no animal waste being piped down to the brook. And all of us that were there saw that there was, in fact, that, as did the neighbors. And I have a hard time when people are that flagrant in their misrepresentation. And my most recent interaction with him, he's been avoiding sending me any information lately. I haven't heard from him in over a month until today. He wanted to have a phone call where we could kind of work this out amongst us and go forward in a quick manner and get this resolved. And that's not the way I want to do business, and I don't believe that's what's in the best interest of the town or the planning board.
So
He had several outstanding issues there. One, he poured a cement slab in the drainage system which both required permits that were never filed. And my contention is, and having read, I finally got emails from the state which essentially say that as long as I'm in agreement with what the requirements are, they're gonna leave it to me unless I ask them to come down there, which I can do if it comes to that.
But I already asked them to come down and inspect.
It has to go,
That's gonna be-
unfortunately, I represent the state as well as the town in some issues.
Okay?
It's a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
But I did go through the training with them, I was there all day yesterday, and I
Yep.
did bring up a couple of these questions. And they need to have a system designed by a soil scientist for the animal waste, which is similar to what you'd have if you're building a house.
Sure.
And they wanted to go, they had something they can get on YouTube video for do it yourself. It doesn't work for kennels any more than it does for your house. And I have informed them that they have to comply with the rules and they have to go by the book, because otherwise it's gonna be very hard to keep track of, unfortunately.
And so the use of them submitting to you first is that because you're involved with them, you can filter out and just stop it before it gets too
In a
far.
case like this, because technically you can't go forward with a CUP unless they're in compliance with the town ordinance, and they clearly are not. And if I filed with the state a complaint, which the neighbors are very well aware of, because they saw the brook in the pipe too, even though it doesn't exist any more than the slab does. Were I to file that with the state, they would take action. And that's one of my responsibilities with the state. I held off doing that because if I do that, it's gonna make it extremely difficult for them going forward, and I've tried to take that into consideration. But there's a limit to how much I can do without getting in trouble with the state.
And so one of
And I
the,
spent about an hour tonight convincing 15+ people not to come here and protest.
you like an audience.
Don, do they still?
I was trying to sell tickets, but that didn't go over too well.
Do they still have the dogs there?
They have 5, and they can have the 5. And there have been no complaints, and I've spoken with people as recently as late this afternoon. Since the other dogs left, there haven't been any issues there.
Because I do have 5.
There are issues in terms of this, they're gonna come across with a whole new plan, apparently, which involves starting from scratch. We have to have another site visit. But they have to have plans, which is part of the thing I think I'm supposed to spring for. You have to be a minimum of 100 feet from their house and any other dwellings. You have to be 75 feet back from the road. You have to have preparation now that the state's involved with the degree that they are, an acceptable septic plan. They have said if I can sign off on that, they're probably good with it unless they get a complaint. But it's gonna be very hard for them to comply with it. And I've taken a lot of verbal abuse, especially from her. And it really is not the way I like to think of things happening in Maine in general, especially in Boston. And I have to say 99.9% of the people in this town I've loved working with. You know, they have, unfortunately, maybe the exception to that. I know they are very unhappy that other applications are going through on a very smooth track. But in the case of Tammy Doyle, they weren't in violation. Whatever building they've done, they got permits for. As soon as she found out there was an issue at all, she was down here and wanting to know what she had to do. And complied fully, and she said I was welcome to her home anytime, which is not that I would drop in for coffee every morning, but it's kind of nice to be treated like a human being.
Yeah, well, she offered me a room.
There's,
Exactly, really, that's the deal that I got from it. Maybe I'll be out in the barn.
there's some more, right around 8.2, there's some other things that we should point out. 8.1, an application for conditional use permit or site plan review approval must be denied for any property where a violation exists until such violation has been corrected or resolved. So if they put in for a CUP and they have existing violations and we refuse the CUP, then in 8.5, if the planning board shall deny a conditional use application, a second request of a similar nature shall not be brought before the planning board within 2 years from the date of the first request, unless we allow them to. So, you know, if they continue with the violations, submit the CUP, we refuse it, then they're, SOL for 2 years.
Exactly. And that's why, in my opinion, and it's worked pretty well so far, that by working together, we can kind of catch these things before something gets slipped under the rug that maybe people didn't know about.
That's why I brought up the Blaze thing, because I thought it would be best to have a conversation.
I think we need to have one there too. Absolutely. I'm nowhere near as familiar with that one as I'd like to be. But my contention is, and it's not just the slab that has to be removed. They need to take up the pipe. And there's mention in one of the letters from Environmental Protection that the sod would have to be restored and all. They are not able to do that until the snow's gone, as far as coming out to visit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But they are willing to go based on what I related to them, and I believe you did as well. And as long as it's restored, they're gonna leave it up to us to do that.
Okay.
If they need to be dragged into it, they will. And they tried to get an approval for a septic design through Environmental Protection, and they strongly advised that they needed to go through my office first, because that is what they prefer to have.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I had an issue to contact them, which is sort of the way it's supposed to go. I don't want to be legalistic on everything that comes down the pike. Sometimes people talk to you and say, can I get in a meeting, or they talk to me. It really doesn't matter.
I think you were pissed off.
There are some cases where we've got to be a little more hard line in this one.
Yeah, okay.
But you'll notice, like this one that came in tonight, I didn't ask that, but it's addressed to me because it has to go to me and to technically.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters most of the time.
Yeah, okay.
I just like to see things get done in a harmonious way and not be dragged out for years.
Yes. So then, I have an issue, and that is in the large storm we had this winter earlier, a high tension line broke and killed some animals, electrified the ground, killed animals. CMP was not able or willing to shut off the electricity for over an hour. I think it was an hour and a half.
Where did this happen?
Down on River Road.
Right, they couldn't turn it off. They tried, but they had no way to disconnect it.
So Cynthia and Chris, last name escapes me right now.
Wild animals or farm
They're
animals?
her horse, her very beloved horse. It was very traumatic for them. So, I mean, you know, in a storm, sometimes you check on your animals. It was lucky that they weren't in the barn, because, and the barn wasn't underneath the wires, it was near the wires. The corral was underneath the wires.
So it was ground electrocution.
Yeah. And, I would feel very badly if somebody, you know, now we're getting these, you can put 2 houses on a lot now, you know, that we're gonna get crowded. There's nothing on our ordinance that says that you can't build underneath the power lines. I don't see it. Do we have it?
We don't have rules, at least in terms of setback from them. And in speaking with the fire chief, you could apparently see the current coming up out of the ground in places, and it was a pretty traumatic event over there. And we do need to consider, being the size town that we are, I was told by someone in the state we were over 4,000 people, and I said last I knew it was more like 1,500. I think I was pretty close, come to find out. But we are exempt from some of the state regulations. But it would be a good idea to look at some of them, like how far you can build in terms of closeness to a power line and things like that, that we really probably should have done.
I'd feel really guilty if, somebody was killed and we hadn't done something.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. I was shocked when they couldn't turn off those big lines. They need to have a way to disconnect.
They would have had to cut off all the Bolton to do it, but they could.
I think
If
they
it
do.
saves somebody's life, it might be worth it.
Yeah, I know when my logger was going down the power lines with the twitch, the CNP came out and told him, if you take down one of those poles, we'll just find your boots in the skidder, that's it. You know, you're dead. For this thing. And some of those wires are old and break. I mean, there was nothing fell on the wires, just the violence of the storm and age, and they fall on the ground. So I don't know, where do I look for some sort of law on that? I don't know.
We're exempt from most of them. I think we need to draft an ordinance that would state how, what setbacks might be. We have that board, and I think I've been invited to the next meeting, the planning committee for the next 20-year plan for the town.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna be comprehensive plan. If that's the proper place to try to draft an ordinance, or if we wanna draft one here.
We can do it. That's what the planning board does.
I will say, while you're on the subject, I believe it's the daycare center headed toward Cornish on the right.
Pumpkin patch.
They have to comply with state rules as far as connections to sprinklers and things like that. But as far as communicating that to our fire chief, no. It would kind of be good if we had some kind of oversight there, so that we would be able to say if there's a fire, heaven forbid, there when there's a lot of kids, they know where the unit is, so they can get onto it. There's a few issues like that that would be ideally addressed. There's several of them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there is a sprinkler system there.
But it's a matter of, as I understand it, it was a matter of where the big pipe is that they connect the pumper to that activates the water. And the state is aware of that, but apparently it's not handed down to our local fire officials, or some of the information is not.
That's
They
generally.
found it by accident.
Yeah, that's done by arrangement between the private landowner who wants to have the fire department know what's going on.
Right. And in the case of Dodge Oil, because they're a company, a bigger company, they have to have the state do the inspections for electrical, but we don't. But there are issues there that we kind of should be aware of in case there was a problem, like how do you shut certain things off in an emergency.
Yep. I thought we handled that somewhat in our conditional use permit. We required them to, deal with the fire department, have trainings. We require them to have trainings, I think.
On some of it anyway. It's a little bit hard to figure some of it out.
Yeah, but this is the fire department's issue, it's not ours. I mean, like, the fire department should be over there talking to the owner and figuring out, I mean, there's, you know, 10 areas involved when they have kind of concerns because of what's there. And the fire department should be there doing, I assume that's why we pay the fire chief, is to go figure that stuff out.
Well, I wasn't casting a rock in this direction. It's just in some areas where we're not involved and the state is, it's hard to get the proper communication. It's frustrating to the chief as well as myself, because sometimes it's not easy to get information that we need.
Where do I find what the state recommends for towns of 4,000 and up to setback from high tension lines?
It's a national electric
I
code.
didn't try to find that out, but I think it's in the electric code.
National electric code shows it.
Yeah.
And, being exempt because of 4,000, we're missing out on a lot of codes.
Right. And in some cases, like the power lines, we probably should not. That's just my opinion on that.
Well, that's what we can do here.
But that's something CMP should have been following too.
I would agree with you. But I'm worried, knowing Don, that he's gonna just grant all kinds of permits for people to build duplexes underneath the power lines.
There's so much, yeah.
I wanna help you not do that, you know?
I get in enough trouble around
Right.
here.
Right, no, I just, after seeing that, the horse dead and, you know, like, no. we
It
don't
could
want
have been a family.
It could have been.
Easily in a house. The trailer that's down there, I think that she got to tell him either to stay out or stay in, because it was arcing right across from that to the ground. And it was a very real hazard. And had it burst into flames and they put water on it, they could have, the fire personnel could have died.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things in there. That was a pretty scary thing. You'd have to ask him for all the details.
Yeah.
But there are some of these issues that, especially as we start having more things happen in town, we need to start taking a look at it.
It boggles my mind that, they could not turn the power off because all we have to do is have a hard rainstorm, the wind blowing, the power goes out in the blink of an eye. We're all of Baldwin, and every text that I get says, 2,081 people involved in the house. And they couldn't turn the power off.
Nope.
So that's, it sounds like they didn't wanna turn the power off.
I think you're probably right, yeah.
It might have been inconvenient and they didn't want to get a lot of complaints from people.
PR.
Yeah.
So, I would agree that's probably what it was. I have one other rather sticky question that's come up. I would ask for guidance on if I could just have a minute. There's a lot near Sand Pond, and Sand Pond Road goes this way, and Dermody Road goes that way. And this lot's in between the two, right where they intersect.
Yes, the town owned it and sold it.
Right.
Yes.
And permits were given to do all kinds of things there, and then it was sold, and the permits went with it, and they were told they would still be valid, although I believe they've expired. The problem is the setback, because at the widest point in that lot, it's only 140 feet from Sand Pond to Dermody Road. So to get the 75-foot setback isn't gonna happen.
Every time I heard about that lot, didn't the town say, as long as you can satisfy the setbacks?
But the setback is 75 feet, and on the other end, it's only 40 feet between the two roads. So you've got between 40 feet and 140. You need 150 setbacks, so you're -10. These people are from Connecticut. They wanted to have it as a family place to build his house on, and then retire there in about 8 or 10 years.
They didn't look at the size of the lot?
They didn't come, well, the problem is there are permits granting for the driveway, which is fine. A septic permit was issued and a building permit was issued to the person that got it from the town, and that person sold it to the people from Connecticut. And they feel it was misrepresented by the people they bought it from. And I'm having a hard time saying that, yeah, it's okay to build there, in spite of what somebody else told them just before I started. Because it doesn't meet the setback.
Setback from what?
You have to be 75 feet back from a road, and there's a road on the two long sides of the property. And 75 and 75 is 150, and there's only a total of 140.
It's not as serious as setback from wetland or sand pond or something like that. Well, what they should do is take it to the, appeals board.
Okay.
And that, you know,
I told them that might be an option, because their builder told them it wasn't possible to do it, because he got it all surveyed out and measured, that you've got a deficit there. Who is in charge of the appeals board, do we know that? I don't.
Gary McNeil, I think, is chairman.
So you tell the town clerk, you have to notify the landowner in writing of your decision. The landowner then files an appeal with the town clerk, and the town clerk gets a hold of Gary McNeil.
Okay, it's right here.
He has to deny because the setbacks, there's not sufficient room, it's the setbacks for whatever they're asking you for.
Yep.
So given the permits that were granted have expired by close to a year, it's okay to just say they're no longer valid?
They're no longer valid, they're no longer valid.
Right, because we've run into this issue before, and I didn't want to get into trouble with people over it.
I was amazed that anybody bought that lot.
Well,
And they probably get a discount because it's not a buildable lot, so, I mean,
When we sell them, we don't characterize them as, this is guaranteed buildable, or what, this is.
As is where it's.
right, but all the other people who would have come in and, looked at it and said, well, you can't build anything on it, so it's not worth very much. So they didn't bid for it, and so these people.
They go very cheaply, about everything we bid off goes very cheaply, and that's why. In fact, you can sell a property that is buildable, and it goes very cheaply because all we give is a quitclaim deed. And we have found in the past that properties have builder's liens on them, and who knows what, so you buy something and take your chances.
The problem in this case is the fellow that bought it from the town got the permits in place, I believe, late the year before last or last year. Got all the necessary permits, listed it with a real estate agent as having all the permits. And these people bought it, understanding they were all valid. And I think that's unfortunate. They drove up, if you go around San Juan, most of those lots couldn't have houses built on them as they are today because the rules have changed. And people say, well, that house is near the road, why can't we build it? All that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's a good way forward. I kind of thought it might go that way. Wanted to be sure. Try to avoid it.
Probably park an RV there, summertime.
Yeah, there you go.
That might be all right.
Tiny home.
No, can't do a tiny home, can't do a fixed to the ground home.
Is that at ground level, it has to be back 75 feet, so they put 2 tall stilts?
Cantilever down on stilts.
So a motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much. We did a lot.
I was all day yesterday at a special, seminar that